Let's make this the largest turnout in Minnesota's history for a district. That kind of deal. But yeah, so I'm really a food person. I cook for my family 6 out of 7 days a week. I do deserve 1 day of break time, so, my wife and daughter help me. They're my sous chefs all the time, so that's about an answer to my question. Food. As you can see.
Food works, but food works for volunteers. It's against state law to feed voters. I apologize, but you know that strategy isn't going to be legal. I would knock every door, and that doesn't scale well. So that's going to involve firing up every precinct chair and associate chair to start knocking every door in your township, in your precinct, or to recruit people near you who can help get that done. I want to make sure that we make a pass of every door in our district, and to that aim, I've started early.
Given the critical shortage of professional mental health providers in rural Minnesota, what measures do you support to meet this critical shortage for our communities and our schools?
Governor Dayton's recently proposed legislation that would increase the ratio of counselors to students, and I would vote for that if I were Matt Grossel. We can also do a lot with peer-to-peer counseling in some environments, but obviously we need to invest in professionals wherever possible. Where there's a lack, we need to invest in education and training of professionals. And when we can't do that, we can do some peer-to-peer mediated by technology.
Given the critical shortage of professional mental health providers in rural Minnesota, what measures do you support to meet this critical shortage for our communities and our schools?
First and foremost, I would definitely support legislation that increases funding, that ensures that our tax dollars go to what they need to be going towards, not even just for counties, but for individual towns. I know it's important for towns to receive the kind of funding that they need in order to keep programs regarding mental illness and other important issues regarding health at the forefront. Likewise, our schools, and keeping public dollars in public schools, not private ones.
Good job, Aaron.
Will you support efforts to increase public health approaches to deal with the opiate epidemic rather than more failed drug war, police prison methods?
Of course. And to go with that, and what I just previously said, I'm also against the privatization of our prisons. I deal with this almost on a daily basis, as sad as it sounds back at home. 2 or 3 people a week are dying of overdoses. I know a lot of people in my community, in my neighborhood, that are affected by the opioid epidemic. I'm personally affected by it, my daughter, my daughter's family, other people that I know and grow up with. And so it's definitely an important issue that's close to me and close to my livelihood. So I would definitely take a big part, and I would listen to the people who I just explained to you that I know, and developing common sense solutions.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I've got a question in my hand.
Everybody hear them? Both okay?
According to the Constitution, by
Describe any relevant work experience that you have. Will you support efforts to increase public health approaches to deal with opiate epidemic rather than more failed drug war, police prison methods?
No, I don't.
Absolutely. Right now there's a bad bottleneck to get into Sanford's pain management clinic, and we need to do more to get access to non-opioid pain treatments in our area, absolutely. And then we have the ability to do trainings on how to use Narcan and similar methods to help people who have overdose. I believe there was recently a meeting about Narcan and the opioid epidemic in Akeley. So more meetings like that are absolutely necessary and appropriate. And we need to go after the doctors that are overprescribing and pharmaceutical companies that have made deadly opioids too available in our communities.
Been here first this time, right? Trying to keep track. You guys help me.
I am.
Describe any relevant work experience that will help you with this position.
Like I admitted before, I've been on Social Security disability much of my life. So I've had less work experience. Some of the work experience I've had has been in telecommunications and internet engineering in the dot-com boom and bust. What I have had is an opportunity to be involved as a volunteer in the DFL and in community action programs. And I've taken training on parliamentary law twice with Brian Melendez and the Hennepin County Bar Association, and obviously parliamentary law, parliamentary procedure is a big part of legislating. So I believe that I've got the basics to get started and start legislating, and I also believe my volunteerism has led to enough connections with legislators to move forward, so some citizen lobbying.
I kind of already alluded to it in my speech earlier. I currently represent 41,214 people for the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. I advocate on a daily basis with local governments, tribal governments, state governments, and the federal government. I've been doing this for 9 years, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. And being able to have both positions of what I do for the tribe as an environmental program manager and what I'd be able to do as a district rep, I believe are just going to flow like the Mississippi River.
First, so you go first this time.
As a candidate, will you look at environment issues on the facts or support a given group? Is the writer of the question, did I get that right? Can you read that? As a writer, as a candidate, will you look at environment issues on the facts or support a given group?
In other words, we take pay off or do the back.
Who's first?
Being the environmental program manager for the Minnesota Chippewa tribe, it's all based on facts. It's all based on things that can be proven. It's all based on truth. One of the discussions I've had with people regarding these types of things was very difficult because they were all propaganda and I was all facts. And it was fun, you know, and I actually enjoyed the conversation that we had. They said that we had to agree to disagree, and I didn't believe that we have to agree to disagree. I just believe that we all have to be on the same table as people of this community that drink the same water and breathe the same air. Pretty much what it comes down to.
I'm going to end up on the side of facts. I've had some scientific training, especially in areas of environmental science, biology, entomology, forestry, and facts matter. There are powerful groups out there. I think in 2016, Enbridge spent $900,000 in lobbying. In the off year, they increased their spending to over $1,200,000. So it's hard to resist that kind of buy, but I believe that I can remain oriented towards facts and pursue truth.
You have to be direct and listen to representatives of both candidates.
Please give examples of how you will try to counter Republicans' agenda in St. Paul that appeals to our rural communities.
I think the main thing is being present in rural communities when you can. One of the main criticisms that I've heard about Matt Grossel is they can't find him, they don't see him, he doesn't show up. And in the Bemidji Pioneer, when we've seen articles about him, he's been late to a lot of events, and we've kind of joked about calling him tardy Matt Grossel because he was late to see schools, take a tour of Bemidji Public Schools. I think you have to be present. I think you have to use social media effectively. I think you have to invite people to take a look at what's coming up in the legislative calendar and invite people to weigh in. So right now there are a number of legislators that actually want to reduce the number of districts because they aren't getting enough queries and complaints from their constituents. And I think that's bullshit. I think that we all deserve the representation that we have in rural Minnesota. And I encourage you all to fight yourselves to make that call to Grossel's office now.
So, I have the ability to be bipartisan by nature. I'm going to give you guys a quick 30-second personal story. But one of the things that I had happen to me in younger years was the influence of gangs in my neighborhood. And I was probably one of the few people that didn't join those gangs. But I was friends with every single one of them and people from every single one of them because I grew up with all of them. And I'm capable of being the neutral party when it matters, and I'm capable of being bipartisan when it matters. And I think that's what will help me turn Republicans over to make this district blue in November.
What one issue do you think is the most predominant for the residents of District 2A, and how would you address it? What is your, this is two questions, I'm going to go with the first part. What one issue do you think is most important for the residents of District 2A? How would you address it?
Pam, would you read that, actually? What's on the sheet?
That's the second question. We can go to that next, but that's two questions. What one issue do you think is most important for the residents of District 2A, and how would you address it?
So for me, it comes down to the economy. And what ties in with the economy is obviously the environment, because of where we live. You know, we live in one of the most beautiful places in northern Minnesota, and tied in with, we're right on the edge of our farming country, and if you just drive 10 miles to the east, you're crossing over into our forestry country. That's all economy, whether anybody wants to look at it any way they want to. The bottom line is our economy is based on our environment and our surroundings and what we have available to us as Minnesotans, what we've worked hard for hundreds of years, not hundreds of years, for decades, sorry, to make Minnesota great in the way it is today and the destination for people from around the world.
I think the largest issue in our district is really the estrangement that most folks feel from each other and from our government. That the practice of being social and being civilized is being lost to well-moneyed interest groups that seek to divide us. I believe that freedom, the freedom to assemble, the freedom to lobby and petition our government for redress of grievances, to protest, that we are not being encouraged to exercise our basic civic values. So I think that's the biggest thing, that we need to make our party, our local governments, our townships more representative and encourage people to show up, maybe be more friendly, more welcoming. But that's my personal take on it. I mean, we've obviously seen our democracy under assault from a foreign power that was able to successfully divide a lot of our communities around issues of guns and God and the typical wedge issues. So.
I'm going to read the second half of this question next because it is a totally different question. You go first?
Sure.
What is your position on replacement line 3, the pipeline?
Pipeline removal will obviously create a lot of great jobs, although very temporary, for folks with Operators Union 49. So I think leaving the pipelines in place, leaving potentially contaminated sites for natural remediation to microbes to work away on that for eons is a wasted opportunity for people who want work with big pipes. So I think that leaving the pipeline in place is the wrong move. I think that we can move away from our dependence on petrochemicals, and that rerouting and expansion of that line is a harmful thing ultimately to Minnesota and to America.
So my position on it is that it's not needed. Again, based on the previous question, that's fact. It's been proven. It's knowledge that I know that I'm well aware of as a position that I hold. But you know, kind of the same thing he was talking about. You know, these are not sustainable jobs. They're temporary jobs, and they're going to affect sustainable jobs. Jobs like the ones I was talking about that our economy depends on. Jobs that our tourism depends on. Jobs that, you know, especially people in the more distant areas of our rural counties depend on clean environments. And the threat that these things have and the potential for them to destroy these clean environments are a direct threat on our lives as Minnesotans.
This is a similar question, but it is a little bit different, so I'm going to allow it. Do you support stopping and removal of pipelines?
I think it's zombie.
I think stopping and removal are two different things. I believe, I agree with the removal of pipelines that aren't needed. And I agree that we already have the current capacity to handle the demand that Americans have. The companies will be the first ones to tell you that their demand is global demand, not American demand. And oftentimes, I hear people talk about they want to reduce our dependency on foreign oil. Tell me how oil from Canada is not foreign, and then I'll agree with you. So, yeah, you know, domestic, foreign, two different things. Maybe 90% of our oil is foreign, and the oil that's going to be pumped through Minnesota is not intended for Minnesotans.
About 5 years ago, I was involved in the protest that was called the Red Lake Enbridge blockade. There are 4 pipelines that run under ceded territory that belongs to the Red Lake Nation near Leonard. And at that time, Enbridge talked about the opportunity to either reroute, that would have cost them around $15 million, or they offered to pay Red Lake, I think $18.5 million to leave the pipelines in place on that parcel of land. Recently, Red Lake has voted to remove those pipelines, and I think that is an amazing and bold move. Those pipelines, those tar sand pipelines, supply about 2/3 of the petroleum consumed in the eastern United States. So it's a powerful pressure that's being exerted by Red Lake Nation on the rest of the country to modernize, to move to a green energy economy. And I support the sovereignty of the Red Lake Nation, and I believe that the Enbridge Line 3 program to reroute and leave the lines in place is inappropriate. So removal.
As a freshman representative, how would you work with others to move your priorities forward?
I know a lot of people who are currently running for State House and a lot of other districts, and I think that's going to be amazing to join the House with a lot of people who are fired up activists that I've knocked on doors with in other districts, and I still know a lot of the folks that are in leadership positions in the House. So I believe that those connections are going to be useful on day one, and that my training in basic parliamentary law will serve me well. And I look forward to serving this district in the State House. Thank you.
As a freshman representative, how would you work with others to move your priorities forward?
Well, I may be considered a freshman House of Representative, but I don't consider myself a freshman representative because I've been doing this for quite a few years, representing a large number of people, as I previously said. Definitely one of the biggest things that I do in my job is create partnerships. Create partnerships to work together for the common good of everybody. And oftentimes, that common good falls right in place with democratic ideals. One of the key points that everybody keeps saying to me is the Red Lake Reservation is 95% or more continuously voting Democratic. That is a number that's unheard of across this country. And so, I think that says something about the ideals of Minnesotans who are historically inherent to this area. And I'm one of them.
You will tell me how are we doing at time?
Yeah, we got it till 12:45.
So, we got another 17 minutes. We're gonna get through our questions.
Yeah, I wrote it down, I didn't recall.
Bless your heart. Okay. This is an interesting question, but I think it's valid. 2 years ago, the Minnesota House District 2A Convention endorsed a candidate with a checkered past. Do you have any legal problems or questionable life choices that would be used against you during the election by opposing candidates?
No, I do not. You'd be hard pressed to find anything about me. I don't even have a speeding ticket on my record ever in my life. I don't have a criminal record that I'm aware of. Maybe somebody's using my name out there. I have no idea. But no, and it was a funny thing. I actually had someone call me and tell me they'd seen something on the internet, and the internet's all truthful and stuff. So I actually went to go see what they were talking about. Changed a few things as just some random person on the internet looking at this site. Call that person back up and says, now what does it say? And they go, oh, it says everything totally different. I said, I just changed that 2 minutes ago. So anybody can make up anything they want. But the people that know me know who I am. And like I said, if any of you guys want a record from the DMV or the county or the state as far as what my criminal record is, I'd be happy to provide it for you because there's nothing on it.
If you go to Minnesota courts and you search online for both of our names, you'll find that we both have criminal records. My record, my first arrest related to a protest in Minneapolis. I was arrested at the Minneapolis Armory when we were trying to save the Minneapolis Armory. Mayor Dawn Frazier had a plan for that armory building to turn it into a community center and to create a shelter for homeless women and children. And the county had a program where they wanted to build a multi-story jail site on that parcel of land. And we managed to save it. We managed to save that building. Unfortunately, it's not a community center, it's a parking lot. I was actually arrested naked on a ledge. The reason I did that was to demonstrate that I was unarmed. Right? The cops got a little bit rough with a few other people in the building earlier in the day. We had guns trained on us all day long. So that's how I explain my record, and I don't know how my candidate explains his, or my opponent. But you can go to Minnesota courts and look it up.
It's not in the rules for rebuttal. If somebody wants to propose that, we have to suspend the rules, make a motion to change that to the rules, and that takes a 2/3 vote of the body.
I would move to suspend the rules then, to allow him a rebuttal.
Length of time for the rebuttal? We have a motion to suspend the rules to allow candidate a rebuttal since his name was brought up in this candidate's speech. It's not in our rules. We have a motion to suspend the rules. How long for the rebuttal?
1 minute.
1 minute for the rebuttal. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
We needed 2/3 of the body to suspend the rules to allow this 1-minute conversation. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries. You have 1 minute.
Like I said when I spoke, if I do have something out there, I'm unaware of it. That's all the time I needed.
Who goes first next time? You do.
Okay. What is your stance on climate fee and dividend as a national solution to reduce carbon in our atmosphere?
Talk to the young people, hold their energy and numbers in this election. Around the world.
Really quickly, because I didn't get a chance there, if anyone has an internet-connected device and you want to go to the Minnesota courts and look that up,
That's part of your,
Sure.
part of your time.
Yeah, it is.
I support carbon tax. Absolutely, we can tax the bad and change human behavior. A dividend is interesting because it possibly helps poor people deal with that additional charge, right? But it may also give them the ability to keep emitting carbon in the way that they have been, right? So I think that we need some of that money that's captured in a carbon tax to go into mitigating climate change and to helping people afford the technology that's appropriate to avoid carbon emissions going forward. If you're looking for the advantage of the dividend that's been talked about, a minimum basic income, a guaranteed basic income is probably a strategy to put dollars into pockets in rural Minnesota and save our small towns. The dividend seems like it will do that, but absolutely we must tax the bad, tax carbon.
What is your stance on climate fee and dividend as a national solution to reduce carbon in our atmosphere?
Well, so I believe in accountability. I believe in accountability of industry, and I believe that we as citizens and Minnesotans and Americans deserve the accountability of the industries that affect our daily lives. I do support the tax, and I support carbon sequestration. I support everything that has to do with reducing the pollution in our water and the air that we breathe. And I also think that stewardship is an important thing that all companies and industries should also be putting forth their dollars for.
$38,000 Americans were killed by a gun in the last year. What measures would you support as representative to address gun violence in Minnesota?
As I alluded to in my beginning speech, I obviously support universal background checks. I support firearm owners having a license to go with that background check. That also includes a mental health exam. I believe just like we have to renew our driver's licenses, we should also have to renew our firearms licenses.